Hi guys, we're back in the shop today, and today I'm working on a little lab power supply for testing 12-volt equipment. I've always got stuff down here, and rather than running and getting a battery, I'd like to have just a little power supply I can plug it into. So I've got this old power supply from my last desktop. It's actually pretty fancy with stainless case and everything, and it's pretty tight in there, so I'm not even sure I'm going to be able to fit all the connectors and everything I want to on the outside, but I'm going to take it apart and see if I can make it fit anyway. Now there's lots of how-to websites and videos on how to do this, so I'm not going to go into big detail on how to do it. If you guys want to look it up, you can. I'm just going to go through, and if you'd like to watch me do it, follow along. So now I'm just going to separate the wires that I don't need and clean up this harness a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to run all my 12-volt wires to this little fuse box, and I'm using automotive fuses over the tube glass fuses just because I have more of those. I always have lots of these blocks, and I rarely have those glass fuses, so it's going to do the same job. Now I'm just going to mark the hole locations for the binding connectors. Now the only soldering I'm doing today is going to be these wires to these terminals, because I bought the cheapest ones there are and you have to solder them. Okay, so I got those installed. It looks like my 3/8 drill bit wandered a little bit, so some of the holes aren't perfect. That one's not perfectly straight, but like most of my stuff, it's never perfect. So now I'm going to put in the voltage gauge and wire the rest of this up, the switch, the resistor, and see if we can get this thing going. So here's the resistor I'm going to use, and what this does is it tells the power supply that there's something in use, like it's supposed to be a motherboard on a computer, but we're just using a dummy resistor. So I'm going to attach that to the outside of the case because it's going to get quite hot, so that'll help disperse some of the heat. Okay, so I just went ahead and wired in the resistor, and now I'm going to try to attach it to that side cover. So I had to take the cover off of the fuse holder because it's a little too high and it doesn't clear the top here. And I also had to slot the holes because apparently this cover is only one directional, and since I'm using the nice side opposite the power plug, I had to slot the holes so that it actually fits. So that's all together. Let's plug it in and see how it works. Okay, so we're ready to test it out. So first I'll turn it on, and we've got our voltage reading there, but we'll double check every channel to see if it's the same voltage. First one here, 13.17, that must be rounding up. 13.15, 13.13. That's close enough. Now let's find something to plug in there and try it out. Okay, so I ran around to find something to plug in here. There's 12 volts to test out. But in the meantime, I left it running, and the little fan that I had put in there was starting to make like a high-pitched noise, and it wasn't sounding too happy, and it's probably the reason why I got it. Maybe it burnt out whatever other equipment there was. So I took that out, I put the old fan back on it, but on the outside this time, because obviously there's not enough room inside. And this is a massive fan. I'll have no problem with it ever overheating with that big fan there. Here I found a few LED strips to plug in to test the unit. And while they work, it turns out there's a high-pitched whine coming from the board, which is either the coils or leaking capacitors. So to save your ears, I decided to mute this clip. I do have to mention that I now have stickers available on my website, and I'm sticking one on the unit right now. If you'd like to support this channel and my projects by purchasing stickers for, say, your toolbox or your car or whatever, simply go to the website, click the order stickers link, and fill out the form. And if you ask nicely, maybe I'll send some for free.
Okay, so very often projects don't go as planned, especially for me. And now, while I was testing the 12 volt stuff, it seems like little LEDs were fine. But once I plugged in anything with a real big load, the power supply shut off. And I think that these BFG supplies are known for that, or they're known to have issues. So even with a minimum load, if we look here, not sure if you can read that, but there's a minimum load on each of the lines. So I made sure I had enough dummy resistors on there. I put extra even to make sure I had a good dummy load, but it was still shutting off. So I pulled out that board. I'm going to scrap this, maybe save it for some parts in case I ever need some. There's a couple of good capacitors still on there. But I got just this cheap power supply, which I've always used cheap ones like this in the past. This one was a little bit better quality from my last computer. So I got this from my buddy Pierre, aka Twisted Iron. If I have a chance, I'll put a link to his channel here. I'm not sure if I can link in the middle of videos yet or not. If not, it'll be at the end of the video, so you guys can check out his channel there. He's doing some neat stuff there too as well. So I'm going to tear this guy open. I really like this the color of this case, the metal. I thought it was stainless at first, but it's actually just plated steel, but it looks a lot better than the plain gray power supply. So I'm going to keep this, just swap over whatever I need in there. And I've also got a little voltage regulator, one of those little buck regulators or whatever they're called. So I'm going to put this on one of the 12 volt lines. So that'll let me adjust the voltage hopefully. And there's a little adjustment screw here. So I actually drew up a little knob in 3D, and I sent that to Pierre to get printed out. So hopefully that'll work. So I'll be able to adjust the voltage with just the knob. If not, I'll have to use the screwdriver to adjust that. So I'm going to tear the new power supply down and start swapping over the internals. And now we've run into another issue. The heatsink here is out a little further than on the other board, so now it's hitting where these binding connectors are. So I'm going to cut this piece off and maybe shorten it just a little bit. With this big fan on there, it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, so I did quite a bit of work off camera here. I got most of the original wiring back together, all the 12 volt leads here. I added another set of connectors here for the little voltage regulator. So I'll be able to turn that down, and I modified the switch here. Rather than being the power switch, it's now going to switch the voltage gauge from one side to the other, so I can either see if we're at 12 volts or how close we are, or to whatever this one is regulated to. So I can switch back and forth with just the one gauge. And I put in a relay to run that little switch. The fuse box is back in there. And now I tried running it, and it does turn on, but it's still not working quite yet. I just wanted to see if it would run without a dummy load resistor, but it doesn't look like it is. So now I'm going to add one to the 5 volts line, and we'll see if that's enough or if I need one on 12 volts as well. So I'm going to install that now. Okay, so I've got the resistor installed now, and everything seems to be working. So I'm going to turn the power on here. I was just doing a couple of tests before I bolt everything back together. So we can see here, just between the wires, it's saying 12.2 volts. So that should be what we have on these 3 rails here. Now if I switch it over, we have 10.7 through the regulator. If I switch this on, I have it connected here. You can see it's pretty darn close. And now I can adjust this lower using this screw back here. We can take that down to 9 volts, 8 volts. So we can adjust that wherever we need it. And hopefully, like I said, maybe I haven't said already, but I have a knob that I drew in AutoCAD and I sent to my friend Pierre, and he's going to 3D print it. So we'll put that on once everything's back together. All right, so now that this testing's done, it seems to be working, I'm going to screw everything back together. Well, I have to say that's one hell of a tight fit, but everything managed to fit in there. I'm going to screw it together and make sure it still all works with all that compression. Okay, so we've got a big mess going on here, but we're ready for a test. I don't have a whole lot of 12 volt stuff kicking around, kind of ironically, but I do have this old tape deck. Used to be on my brother's, and I found a speaker here. I just wired it up temporarily. Make sure nothing's touching there. And I found an old burnt CD. I'm not sure if this actually plays MP3s, but we'll see. So I'm going to turn that on. Slide that in. See what happens. Okay, so the old tape deck doesn't play MP3s, so I took that out, and I managed to find a real CD. Keith Urban still in the case, obviously, because we don't even have a CD player in our cars or anything. So I'm going to open that up and throw it in. In case you're wondering why I have a Keith Urban CD, it's because we went to his concert last year and they gave free CDs out to everybody. So let's give that a try. Obviously it doesn't sound good because it's a shitty speaker hooked up to like the rear speaker line, but it works. Voltage is pretty steady at 12 volts. I'm happy with that. And if we switch it over, you can see we have 7 volts on the regulator side. So this was working how I wanted it to. Let's hope there's enough amperage for everything I want to run, but I'm sure there will be. So once I get the knob installed, I'll film that and then we'll wrap up this video. So here's the knob I drew in 3D. And Pierre printing it for me. here it is all printed. Tiny little guy. So we'll see if that'll fit on now. Okay, so I've got the little knob on. I added a little bit of hot glue inside just to grip the set screw a little better. So let's see how well that works. Okay, so I'm going to turn it on. And I've got a little 6-volt flashlight bulb here. So I'm going to try that out. So we'll switch it over to the regulator side, and I'm just going to dial that in till we have 6 volts. Okay, I've got it set to 6 volts here, and I've got a little 6-volt LED flashlight that I took apart. I don't have a whole lot of 6-volt stuff, so we're just going to see how that works. You can see here, nice and bright, so that works great. Okay, so we hit a few speed bumps along the way, but our power supply is working. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I think this will come in quite handy for my future projects. So like I said, this project has been done millions of times on YouTube and on the internet. There's all kinds of how-tos and stuff there. So if you guys want to make one, go check it out. So this was just my build. Comment below, tell me what you think. If there's anything you think I should do to maybe upgrade it in the future, put a bigger regulator in or something, comment below. And if you like this video, click the like button. If you haven't already, click subscribe. I've got tons of toolbox stickers in stock, so if you guys would like some, go on my website. There's an order form there, and I'll send some out to you. And as usual, thanks for watching, guys.